Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. My name is Muhammad Saeed, and with me I have Sheikh Noorud-deen for our weekly program Quranic Reflections. And this week we wanted to speak about, dear Sheikh, about information and about what we do with information that's either reported or that's relayed to us, because we live in an age where there's a lot of information all the time. Yeah. Social media, radio, news, television, everything. So there's guidance for everything, as we know, in the Deen, and alhamdulillah. So so there is guidance for us also in how we deal with information, and what we understand from it, and what we are to glean from it. So in the light of Quran and Sunnah, what does the Deen tell us about how we should deal with information, whether it's on an individual basis or whether it's reported?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, we'll begin with the verse of Quran from Surah Hujurat, ayah number 6, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ba'da a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu idha ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in fatabayyanu an tusibu qawman bijahalatin fatusbihu ala ma fa'altum nadimin. Okay. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O you who believe, if a sinful person comes to you with some news or information, فَتَبَيَّنُوا, verify it, so that you do not hurt or harm a people out of ignorance, and then you become remorseful over what you've done. Okay? So we begin with this holy verse of the Quran, speaking about how to deal with, how to process, understand, react to news or information that reaches us. And the first obligation Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put here, that to verify, and not simply to take it. Yes, no doubt the Quran here spoke about if a fasiq, a sinful person, comes to you with information. But as we're going to see in hadith, we'll speak about later on, the practice of the Prophet ﷺ was to verify all of the time. You see, especially regarding important matters, to always verify. Okay, so no doubt the Quran is emphasizing, especially if this person is, not considered an upright individual, no doubt one should verify. But even if the person is individual, the Sunnah an upright individual, the Sunnah covers this, even then to verify, inshallah, as we'll speak about later. So this is the first thing. You see, unless one takes one's time, reflects upon information he or she receives, and deliberates before reacting to it, it can cause a lot of harm, as the Quran spoke about. It may be that you harm a people in ignorance. Now, this no doubt should be observed in one's relationships, one's individual relationships, and also in, as you touched upon at the beginning, information we take from mass media. It should be acted upon in our interaction with other people, and it should be acted upon in the formation of our views and opinions. You see, so on both levels. So if I start with the individual level and the interaction to begin with, we may have many examples. But for example, a person comes to you and says to you, such and such, unfortunately this happens, such and such has been saying this about you, such and such has been, backbiting you, or such and such has been belittling you, or what have you, and he brings you this information. The correct response the Quranic response is not to just accept that information and then allow rancor, hatred to develop in one's heart regarding that person.
Right.
You see, rather we start by not accepting that information. Doesn't mean you need to say to the person who's brought you, you're a liar. You see,
No.
you don't need to go that far.
Yeah.
But again, the sunnah would be to say, please, I don't want to hear these negative things. It doesn't benefit me in any way. You say, please don't bring me this kind of information. This was the practice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, but anyway, the individual's response should be not to accept that information, not to take it as fact. Okay, either, and in the context that I've mentioned, just to overlook it and not give it any importance at all, or if one really wants to, okay, verify it. You see, check it out. This happened to me myself. Some years ago, there was a friend of mine, and we were both involved in teaching the Deen. Okay, and we used to kind of take it in turns to lecture or deliver speeches or what have you. And somebody mentioned to the other, my friend, that Noorud-deen's not happy with you, nor does he like you, nor does he like you teaching. I don't know why, but for some reason he just decided to say this to him. And he was quite troubled, you see, by it. What's going on, to my face, he's really nice, you see, and he's really friendly, and what's going on, what's truly going on here? Is he speaking about me behind my back? Is he, saying things about me, or is he saying things about what I teach religiously or what have you? But alhamdulillah, he followed the guidance. He came to me and he said, I've heard somebody said this to me. And I was shocked. You see, what on earth is going on here? And I said to him, no, absolutely not. I've not said anything like this to anybody, and nor do I have an issue. And if I did, inshallah, I would speak to you directly. We're brothers. Muslims are brothers. We should be open, and we should be accepting, and we should, give advice and nasiha and clarify any issues that we have. But alhamdulillah, the beauty of his response, which unfortunately is a bit of a rarity, he followed the Quranic guidance. He came to me and he said that this has happened, and then we had the discussion, and he was absolutely happy that for whatever reason he'd been misinformed with regards to it. Alhamdulillah, no fitna, no there's no break in the friendship, no envy, no rank, nothing there. You see, rather it increased the brotherhood.
Yes.
You see, increased the love, increased the respect and admiration. You see, and it really taught me a lesson. You see, that look at this brother, mashallah, rather than turning away from it and just possibly having something in his heart. And that's what he said to me when he came to me. He said, I don't want anything in my heart, so I wanted to ask you directly. I wanted to have a pure heart with regards to yourself. So I came, so that's why I've come. So alhamdulillah, a really good example. But how often does that happen? There's no harm if somebody receives such information and says, I'm not giving it any importance whatsoever, and doesn't speak to the third party, as I said in our context, but at the same time holds no grudges, has no envy, not envy, rancor or hatred or dislike towards that person, has rather rejected it altogether, hasn't allowed it to enter into the heart at all. This is, I would say, this is the best thing to do. You see, this is the highest rank. Okay, but you have to be realistic. If you feel there's going to be something left in your mind or in your heart, then it's better to go and clarify. So this is more like on an individual level.
Sure.
On a grander level, if you like, when you're speaking about international events or such things and things which are put out there on mass media or what have you. Should a person just accept everything that's put to them on mass media? Absolutely not. And this would not be the Islamic teaching.
No.
You see, the tabloids or the broadsheets or radio or internet or what have you, or the television is all reporting something, doesn't mean you're necessarily going to accept it. You see, and we've had examples, many have and will have many examples where things are incorrectly reported. See, and the more intelligent person will take that information and think, hold on a minute, why is this being mentioned, because unfortunately, even mass media, it has its each kind of individual entity from amongst them have their own agenda.
Yes.
You see, and will promote their own agenda, and we see that in the way they phrase things. You see, and no doubt in the way they report things, and selective reporting also, and giving more attention to some things over others.
Yeah.
We see that. So the more intelligent person, and the Muslims, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that the Muslim should be qayyis, should be intelligent. You see, the more intelligent person is going to think, well, hold on a minute, let me decipher for myself, what are the actual facts that they're reporting here, and what's got spin, or what's being skewed for my consumption. So this is important. Just to mention one example, we have the Iraq War. The premise for the Iraq War was weapons of mass destruction.
Yes, it was.
And some people questioned it back then. But the response, a lot of the questioners, the naysayers, the response they will receive, well, all of the media outlets are united. They're all saying the same thing. Or maybe, in the West they were all united. I don't know. There may have been some who disputed this, but, all media channels are saying the same thing. It doesn't matter. You see, again, and this is completely in line with the verse of the Quran. Yani, verify, otherwise you may harm a people. And the destruction that caused and continues to cause the actions based on false information. False information can be devastating to individual relationships, as we spoke about a little, and it can be devastating on a larger scale also.
I think that's very clear in terms of that example there was absolutely was a very well known case, a very well known situation. But before we sort of develop that further, one other thing I wanted to go back to was actually social media. Because things are sort of they go viral very quickly on Twitter or on Facebook or other social media portals are available, and so should one observe the same? Because sometimes you think, oh, this is just between me and a sort of a group, or you don't get the feeling or the impression that it's kind of it's wrong in a way to kind of perpetuate something you've heard or to relay something, because now to retweet something or to share something, I mean, how does that have any what bearing does or how should we be aware of sort of sharing things on social media? Does the same things normally?
Absolutely.
The same thing?
Absolutely. Same thing here. We have a responsibility there. There's a hadith I have in mind. I should inshallah check its reference, but in a hadith it's reported that the Prophet ﷺ said that it is sufficient lying on the part of an individual to repeat everything he hears. You see, that the Prophet ﷺ, what's the Prophet ﷺ teaching us here, that if you just regurgitate and pass on everything that you hear, that's going to contain lies. You see, and again, it's not the correct way of doing things as a Muslim. You see, that if you want to,
because it's so quick now, it's really fast. It's so it's scary, really, because when they mean viral, they really do mean viral. It does. It's very quick just to click a button and to send something off. And in that moment, what you're saying is that you could be sinful in that act.
Absolutely, you should be careful, especially. And not only does this hadith apply here, another hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ spoke about that a mu'min, a believer, shouldn't busy himself with things that are of no concern. You see, this is Sahih hadith. You see, ma la ya'nih. And he shouldn't concern himself with something that's not his business. What somebody said about somebody else, or what a celebrity is doing, or some public figure is doing. It's not usually it's not our concern. It's got nothing to do with us. You see, and to pass on those kind of things or what have you, it's futile. And the believer shouldn't busy himself. There's too many useful things to be doing rather than busying oneself with futile matters. If it is something of importance, okay, not just because a lot of what goes on social media is just a waste of time.
Absolutely.
But if it is something of importance, again, before passing it on, as a Muslim, one should verify, or at least be fairly sure that this is accurate. You see, and should be fairly sure that this is accurate before passing it on to others.
Now, look, some people say that, well, okay, in terms of verification, let's kind of sort of break that down. What does the Deen say about verifying something then? What would lead to something being credible? So how would you go down the route of actually checking something? What does the Deen say about that? What the certain criteria need to be fulfilled, either by the person who's seen it, or does that depend on what it is?
It's a very good question, and this gives me the opportunity to speak about something very close to my heart, which is hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You see, alhamdulillah, I'm sure people do it with noble intentions. They're constantly passing on hadith. You see, hadith of the day, or they get a hadith and they pass it on, or what have you. I receive many of them myself, you see, and not everybody's going to have the ability to do this, okay, but everybody should strive at least to have the ability to do this. Hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam are incredibly important. When you when you forward a hadith, you are saying the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said these words. And if he didn't say them, and you're passing them on, it's it's a huge problem. It's a real shortcoming. As as an individual, if I haven't said something, and other people are saying Noorud-deen said this, Noorud-deen said that, I'm going to be upset. But I'm insignificant, especially if we're looking at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in comparison to any other words other than the Quran, anybody else's speech is insignificant. This is the most significant speech that we have after the Holy Quran, the wording of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so often you'll find hadith being passed on which are either fabricated or extremely weak. And with the fabricated hadith and the extremely weak hadith, the ulama said it's not permitted to narrate them or write them or pass them on without clarifying that they are fabricated or they are extremely weak. As for weak hadith, no problem. Even there's no problem in passing them on, but what the ulama said with regards to weak hadith, when they're passed on, it should be mentioned either explicitly or implicitly. That's the weak hadith. Whereas the one you can just pass on without any caveat whatsoever is the sahih and the hasan hadith, and no doubt the mutawatir hadith is a very strong hadith. So this is the first thing I would mention. With the Quran, I haven't come across such an issue with the Quran. Usually when people are forwarding verses of Quran, it would be nice even then just for the person to just check a standard or well-known, well-established translation of the Quran, check the verse, is it actually there? Okay, but because it's not, I really haven't come across it, and never has it been highlighted as an issue that people are mentioning verses of Quran which are not verses of Quran. Sometimes people may mistranslate something here and there, but even that, it's not so common. Whereas with hadith, it's rife. It's a real problem. So I would say, let's make that the starting point.
Yes.
So this is after the Quran, the most important thing. Okay, so again, with forwarding hadith, be careful. Don't just, if you've received it from somebody, you don't know this person, you don't know this person to be a religious authority or what have you, double check. So just be sure about it, especially if it seems like something the Prophet ﷺ doesn't normally say. Now this is one, this is an important matter that Muslims should be familiar with hadith. Muslims, I advise many of my students to read hadith every day. Read 5, 10 hadith every day. Familiarize yourself with the language of the Prophet ﷺ, what's his norm in terms of what he says sallallahu alaihi wasallam Muhammad, and how he says it sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then, especially when a hadith comes through and it seems a little bit odd, okay, don't reject it. It would be wrong to just say this is not a hadith. The Prophet doesn't normally speak like that. That's one end of an extreme, and the other end is just to accept it automatically. Hold back, check it. Verify it, cross-reference it, ask somebody about it. You see, be sure about it before passing it on. Whereas hadith which are really well known, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, indeed actions are only by intentions, the hadith Jibreel, or these hadith are really well known, no problem, forward them. Okay, but I would say with all hadith it's a good idea to check, but especially those that are a little bit, out of the ordinary. Again, it's not permitted to reject them, but check them.
Yes.
Before forward them.
Yeah.
And one of the things the scholars do point out with regards to this, they say that especially those hadith, and these are probably more regularly forwarded than others, those hadith that promise great rewards for relatively small actions. Again, nobody should misunderstand this. They did not say reject such hadith. Absolutely not. We have many sound hadith that offer vast rewards for relatively small actions. But what the ulama, the hadith scholars were pointing out is there are some, not some, a lot of the hadith which are actually fabricated, they have this theme. Okay, great rewards for relatively small. So again, when you receive a hadith like this and you want to pass it on, check it. Especially those type of hadith. As for other issues, information or news or what have you, it depends on each one.
Right.
You see, so if forwarding some, people kind of forward things with regards to what's going on in the world, such things. Again, with each specific story or piece of information, one should try to verify it in whatever manner is appropriate, rather than just accepting it and rather than just passing it on. No.
Because perhaps we'll move on to this bit in the second part of the program. But recently we've seen our deen misrepresented. It was all kicked off by a particular representation of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that was offensive. And so what's happened is that's resulted. Okay, that's one thing on its own that's offended and upset a lot of us. But then again, what's happened is that a lot of people have misrepresented or misunderstood, and now passing on information or their opinions about what they believe the deen is because of what the result of the publication occurred, or think that this is what's the deen's is, when in fact it's wrong. What are our responsibilities? I mean, I know that's moving on to another space there, but our responsibilities in kind of readdressing or correcting those things.
This is a really important point that you bring up. Now, whenever we have such an event take place, which is completely engulfs the media, and it's just everywhere. And obviously, especially if people feel that it's reflecting badly on their religion, everybody wants to have their say. You see, everybody becomes mufti or sheikh for that brief period. I believe this and I believe that. You see, I would say the responsibility here is that, okay, if you believe this and you believe that, check it out. You see, is it the beliefs that you're holding? Okay, are they correct? You see, and are they in line with the Quran and Hadith? And are they the beliefs of authoritative, recognized scholars? And this is the point in Islam. We don't just say it's a free-for-all. Anybody gets to say whatever they like. Okay, well, they can, but it's not acceptable. You see what I mean? They can. Everybody can have all their views and opinions or what have you, but it's not considered correct or acceptable. If you want a view or want an opinion, it should be in line with the Quran. A religious view or opinion, it should be in line with the Quran and the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And ideally, it should be backed up with authoritative ulama. So with these recent events, somebody says, "Oh, no, we shouldn't even have any dislike or any objection to this whatsoever." Okay, where's that coming from? And the response on the other end of the scale, where's that coming from? You see, when you lose the connection with true, authoritative, reliable scholarship, then it's a free-for-all. You see, and this is the point. The Deen's always had that religious authority. You see, when it comes to knowledge, you see, take your knowledge from authority. That way, inshallah, you won't end up on one extreme or the other extreme.
Subhanallah. On that note, we're going to take a short break, and inshallah, we'll be back after these short messages. Assalamu alaikum.
The Messenger of God, peace be upon him, said, 3 characteristics are the signs of a hypocrite. Even if he fasts, performs the prayer, and claims that he is a Muslim. When he speaks, he lies. When he makes a promise, he breaks it. And when he is trusted, he betrays his trust.
Narrated by Abu Hurairah in the collections of Bukhari and Muslim.
Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. This is Muhammad Saeed with Sheikh Noorud-deen with the Quranic Reflections program, and this week we're talking about press, media, information, and how we should deal with it. And later on if we have time, we'll also touch on some elements of freedom of speech, perhaps, if we have time. If not, we can talk about that in next week's program. But Sheikh, what other hadiths are there relating to how we deal with information?
Bismillah. So I wanted to quote this hadith, which is narrated in the Mustadrak of Imam Hakim. Said it's Sahih. Imam Dhahabi concurred that it's considered Sahih also. This speaks about the Mi'raj of the Prophet ﷺ, which is well known. We have many hadith about it. But there's a particular point here.
That's the night journey.
The night journey of the Prophet ﷺ to Jerusalem. Miraculous night journey to Jerusalem, and then up to the heavens. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The journey itself is mentioned in the Quran, is mentioned in many hadith. But Imam Hakim, he narrated something that many others didn't. It's well known that the following day the Prophet ﷺ spoke to the disbelievers and the believers in Mecca about this miraculous journey. And obviously the disbelievers, they mocked and they rejected. And they thought they will go to Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu and tell him about this in order to weaken his faith, or in order to distance him from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because they recognize this is a very devout follower of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's brought many people into the fold of Islam through his own propagation, and they felt that if we can get him to reject the Prophet's claim, then everybody else will follow suit. So they came to the Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and they said that your companion says such and such, that he went to Jerusalem and came back in a single or in a portion of the night. Okay. The response Imam Hakim recorded in his Mustadrak, he said, Sayyidina Abu Bakr said the following words: لَإِن كَانَ قَالَ ذَلِكَ لَقَدْ صَدَقَ. Okay. What does this translate as? Sayyidina Abu Bakr said, if he did truly say it, then he is telling the truth. Okay. And there's lots and lots in this hadith, and mainly it speaks about the Mi'raj and such things and the miracles of the Prophet ﷺ. But we'll stick to our subject for now. Is what did Sayyidina Abu Bakr do? And in this, he's teaching the entirety of the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, and he's somebody that we have been commanded by the Prophet ﷺ to follow. Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu. What did he say? If he truly said it, or if he said that, then I believe. Okay. What was he teaching us? That look, there's this group of individuals giving me some information regarding the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They're not particularly reliable. They're disbelievers. They mock him sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they reject him. Okay, and I'm not going to just accept something so important from them. I'm not going to accept speech of the Prophet from them. You see, so this is why I put that caveat there. If he said it, I believe it. But it's as if Sayyidina Abu Bakr is saying, I don't accept your narration, so I'm going to ask the Prophet myself. But the point is, regardless, if it's true, I believe it. So again, comes back to this point, verification. And he wanted to verify, he wanted to make sure radiallahu ta'ala that the Prophet had truly said it. And when the Prophet truly, when he recognized it, he believed it right away. And this is, according to many scholars, this is when he received his title As-Siddiq, the truthful one, or the acceptor of truth, or the veracious one, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Now, so Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, this was his approach. And again, this is in line with the teaching of the Quran and the Hadith. Be sure.
I mean, coming back to the some of the issues of the day regarding news and information, and about the Prophet, peace be upon him, and how he's been portrayed. What does the Deen say about freedom of speech? Because the thing is that some people, Muslims, were asked, and they said, "Oh, there's no such thing as freedom of speech." Well, what does the Deen say about first of all about freedom of speech, and secondly about causing offence, and about what because the thing is that we know what the grand narrative is, that everybody thinks that, you should be able to say anything you want, regardless of whether it's offensive or not. If it's offensive, in fact, it's a free for all. Well, what's the quality of a Muslim, and what does the Deen teach us about how we should behave, and how we should respond, and how we should treat others?
Alhamdulillah. I mean, I completely reject the statement that Islam has no such thing as freedom of speech. We absolutely have freedom of speech. We have the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, they were free to say whatever they like. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam stood up in Mecca and would say things in Mecca that maybe the ruling class there were objecting to, or what have you. We have freedom of speech. We have hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that the greatest martyr is the one who speaks a word of truth in front of a tyrant leader. You see, absolutely, it's not only permitted, it's encouraged. We have the concept of nasiha. You see, speaking the truth, and even if it's bitter or what have you, to go ahead and to speak it. We have freedom of speech. What we don't have is freedom to abuse
or offend.
You see, we have prohibitions on things like backbiting.
Yes.
We have prohibition on defaming people. We also have a clear understanding with regards to privacy. You see, some agree with it, others disagree with it. Here in the West, how the media violates individuals' privacy. We have
the Leveson inquiry was testament to the fact that the media was too intrusive on a number of occasions, and been taken to task for it.
Precisely. So the point is, yes, we have freedom of speech. We don't have freedom to insult, to abuse, to invade individuals' privacy. You see, where it's, and the way I see it, where it's beneficial, there's freedom. Where it's harmful, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed a prohibition on backbiting. What's the benefit of backbiting? Speaking ill of people. What's the benefit of defamation? So what's the benefit of mocking people? So all of these kind of things, whereas done in a respectful manner or in an appropriate manner, there's no restriction on speaking the truth or making one's point. We have no objection to people saying, I don't believe in Islam, or I don't believe the Quran, or I don't believe the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him,
Sallallahu alaihi
we
wasallam.
disagree with them,
Yeah.
we're not going to be up in arms about it.
Yeah.
It's your private belief, and we had from the beginning of Islam up to this day, we have non-Muslims living in Islam, refusing to believe in the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, refusing to believe in the Quran. No issue. You see, the issue we have is with insulting. You see, why does it have to be done in an insulting manner? It doesn't. Irrationally, it doesn't make any sense. You see, I was listening to on the radio recently, listening to a discussion, and they said, if you mock something, it has a greater impact. Well, what does that say about our society then? Surely, a sound, rational, well thought out, well presented discussion and argument should be more impactful and more persuasive than childish mockery.
Absolutely.
So this is the point. I mean, Islam, yes, we have freedom of speech, but we don't have freedom to insult and abuse individuals.
I think that's the there appears to be a lot of sort of double standard, if you will. But that's kind of another topic for another program, perhaps. But the thing is that what we're finding is that is that people are responding in different ways as well, because what we're seeing is that some people say that, well, okay, it's absolute, and you can say what you want, whereas some people are saying that there is a limit, and we've heard both sides of the argument, and I think many people have heard it widely discussed. But what would be an appropriate kind of how should a Muslim respond to something that has offended them, or what examples can we learn from the Prophet's life, that the Prophet, peace be upon him's life, that teach us on how to respond, and first of all how he responded, but then how we should behave as well.
Okay, so we'll just begin with one example of the Prophet responding. This hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari. The issue is also spoken about in the Quran. Surah Munafiqeen was revealed with regards to this particular issue. This is where a Sahabi called Zayd ibn Arqam, a young man, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he was sat amongst some of the Ansar, and amongst them were Munafiqeen, amongst them were the hypocrites from Medina. And what the individual who's considered their leader, Abdullah ibn Ubay, he was also there. A particular incident had taken place, and it upset Abdullah ibn Ubay. Okay, and what did he do in this circle of friends? He mentioned a number of things which were derogatory regarding the Prophet ﷺ. Completely disrespectful and completely inappropriate. Okay. In Bukhari, he mentions one of these statements that he made. He said that when we return to Al-Madinah, then the honored, noble one will kick out, will remove, will exile the lowly one from there. Okay. And what he intended that he is going to remove the Prophet from the city of Medina. And this was his description of himself and of the Prophet ﷺ. Really insulting. And this outraged Zayd ibn Arqam radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and as it outraged many other Sahaba. Zayd radiallahu ta'ala anhu, in some narrations it mentions he went to the Prophet himself. In other narrations, like this one in Bukhari, he told his uncle, who told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But in any case, it got to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay. And the Prophet ﷺ, not in Bukhari, in Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba, it's mentioned the Prophet ﷺ went as far as saying to him, it may be that you misunderstood. It may be that you misheard. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ was fending it off, you see, fending off this abuse and not really putting much importance on it. But anyway, as it happened, the issue persisted, and the Prophet ﷺ summoned Abdullah ibn Ubay and asked him, and he swore oaths that, I said no such thing, and he's lying against me or what have you. The Prophet ﷺ wanted the issue to be dropped. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ left it. Then Surah Munafiqun was revealed.
Right.
Okay, and in Surah Munafiqeen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about how it was true that precise phrase is mentioned in the Quran. Okay, what Abdullah ibn Ubay said. Okay, so precisely what Zayd ibn Arqam had reported the Prophet ﷺ was revealed in the Quran to be true. Okay, even then the Prophet ﷺ didn't do anything to Abdullah ibn Ubay, left him alone. Okay, so this was the behavior of the Prophet ﷺ himself. The Prophet ﷺ, people abused verbally, physically the Prophet ﷺ throughout his 23-year mission to propagate the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam Muhammad. Okay, so his own response was always to overlook, not give it any importance or what have you. And some Muslims, they misunderstand this. You see, they say, well, this is what the Prophet used to do, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So if the Prophet is abused, this is what the followers of the Prophet should also do, just not really be concerned about it. Okay, that's not correct. And reverse the situation. When somebody else was abused or insulted, and the Prophet came to know of it, he would do something about it. He would have the other person apologize, or would tell that person that this is inappropriate. You see, this is the point. The Prophet would give up his own right, but he wouldn't, if another person's right is abused, he wouldn't say, "Oh, just forget," not say just forget about it. He wouldn't just show no interest or no concern. This is how he was with his ummah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You see, and this is a general principle we have in the Islamic teaching. It's perfectly fine for one to give up one's own right, but it's not okay to give up the right of another. Okay, and the greatest right for believers, and this is why Muslims are so offended and upset and troubled by the mockery of the Prophet ﷺ, because the Prophet ﷺ is dearer to the believers than their own self. You see, the Prophet ﷺ is, a person would happily have himself ridiculed or mocked to save the Prophet ﷺ, more than happily would have this. You see, so the Prophet ﷺ is so dear to the believer, and it causes a lot of pain. Okay. But anyway, let me continue what I'm speaking about. Is what was the response of the Sahaba when the Prophet ﷺ was insulted? You see, after the passing of the Prophet ﷺ, or even during the life of the Prophet ﷺ, they would be upset.
Yes.
And they would want to put a stop to it. Okay. Now, how you put a stop to it is an important discussion.
Of course.
Okay. But the point is, this is not an adequate response. It's not an acceptable response. That the
to say you do nothing.
Do nothing because that's what the Prophet done. Well, the Prophet done nothing for his own self, whereas for you, as the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, Prophet ﷺ protected you.
Yes.
The Prophet ﷺ, it may have been the Sahaba directly, but it's the entire ummah indirectly. It's his example, his teaching. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam Muhammad. So this is completely unacceptable, to say that just let anybody say anything about our Prophet ﷺ and we'll just smile and accept it, or turn the other cheek or what have you. This is not acceptable. There should be a response. Okay. It should be an appropriate response. You look at the context that you live in, okay, and it should be a non-vigilante approach to things. You see, vigilantism isn't acceptable in Islam, but there should be a response. You see, and for Muslims to protest, for Muslims to articulate the fact and to make public the fact that they do not accept this and they do not want it to continue is absolutely the right response. You see,
yeah, because I mean, we the behaviour of a Muslim and is that as you say, we should not we don't offend, and we don't respond by being equally offensive or by doing anything beyond what they have done, because the thing is that, as the old adage goes, two wrongs don't make a right, and it never has and it never will. And the thing is that but what you're saying is that if somebody has a right, it's our duty to protect that right, so long as it's a noble it's a noble right and it's a noble cause. But
I think just something I should mention
Yeah.
here as well. Some people make it an us and them issue, a Muslim non-Muslim issue.
no, it's not
Yeah,
that
it's
at
not
all.
a Muslim non-Muslim issue. Yani it's not the case that every non-Muslim believes that it's perfectly right to insult other
Oh,
people,
no, no,
especially
absolutely.
religious
Yeah,
leaders.
yeah,
So, that shouldn't be misunderstood. It's not correct to make it a Muslim non-Muslim issue. Muslims on one side, non-Muslims on another. You see, this is, as far as I'm concerned, a matter of civil behaviour. You see, in a civil society, not to insult one another. You see, for a person to live with the freedom and with the peace of mind that something so important to them, so dear to them, is not going to be mocked.
Yeah.
It's not going to cause such pain. We have laws against discrimination. We have laws. There are. It's a matter of fact. There are limits to freedom of speech. You see,
Yeah.
and if we look at some of the limitations that we have, if we analyse them, in each case there's a limitation there because
In law.
In law,
Yeah.
in each case there's a limitation there because it causes severe offence and it deeply hurts people. And sometimes there's limitations because of something incites others to violence or what have you. Okay, but the first one is important. We have limitations because socially and in the law, certain things are socially unacceptable.
Yeah.
Somebody was to abuse a person on the grounds of their sexuality, for example, or the grounds of their race or what have you. Okay, I'm not sure about the law. I'm not sure how far the law goes with regards to that, but no doubt socially these are completely rejected.
Of course, yes.
Why are they rejected? Because we recognise as a society that this is deeply hurtful. You see, and ask any Muslim if you were to abuse them with regards to their race. They would be offended, yes, and it's not correct, and I'm not encouraging that, but they would be infinitely more offended and hurt if you mock their prophet, if you mock their Quran, you mock their religion. You see, so this is my understanding of it. That certain things are socially or legally not accepted because of the deep hurt and pain that they cause. Or this is the deepest hurt and the deepest pain for a Muslim. I invite anybody to ask any believer. You see, if given the very strange and odd choice, if you were to be abused with regards to this area of your life, or this, okay, they'd always protect their religion. You see, and this is what they'll always find most hurtful and most offensive. So, it comes back to that very same point. That if it's offensive, if it's really hurtful to a person, should it be? And again, I don't feel this is curtailing freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is, I disagree with your prophet, okay, because of this, this, and this. Or I disagree with your religion because of this, this, and this. Or I disagree with you as an individual because of this, this, and this. Okay. Why does it have to be mocking or abusive?
Yeah, because as you say, the thing is that if you're there was a saying comes to mind that one should say what is good or be silent.
Yeah, there's a hadith of the Prophet.
Oh, it's a hadith. Oh, okay. You can elaborate on that then. Sorry, I'm in my layman's terms. I narrated that.
It's absolutely right.
Oh, right.
Now, man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyaqul khayran aw liyasmut. This is in Bukhari. Whoever believes in Allah and the last day, let him say good or remain silent.
Yeah. So that's actually a very important, a very simple hadith, if you will, but something that actually could guide us in all aspects of our lives. Because the thing is that you shouldn't say anything that's actually harmful to anyone at all.
You have it in hadith, you have it in Quran.
Yeah.
The Quran prohibits Muslims from abusing the religions of others. Okay. Now, some may say, well, actually, that's because the Muslims believe in all of the religions. And how can we offend Jesus, peace be upon him. It'd be
No, but that goes for other religions too. Like,
Precisely.
it doesn't. There's no
Yes.
distinction.
Yeah.
There is no distinction,
That's
is
the
there?
point. So for some, like Christianity or Judaism, or Jesus, peace be upon him, or
Yeah.
Moses, peace be upon him, it would be an insane thing for a Muslim
Of
to
course,
offend. And
yeah.
it would be disbelief. It would take one
Yeah.
outside the fold of Islam.
Mm.
Okay, so they can't.
Oh, so let's.
but it goes for all
Mm.
other religions
Yeah,
also.
yeah. Mm.
Even those religions that have come about later.
Mm.
You see, the Quran put an absolute prohibition. Don't
Mm.
abuse the gods of others.
Mm.
Okay, or don't
Mm.
abuse the religions of others. At the same time, the Quran
Mm.
does teach us
Mm.
that this is the truth.
Mm.
There's only one God. You see,
Yeah.
so the point is,
Yeah.
what the Quran is teaching us, yes,
Mm.
absolutely right for you to have your belief,
Mm.
absolutely right for you to disagree,
Mm.
but it's not right for you to offend or abuse anything, even if you believe it to be fundamentally incorrect.
Yeah, because we have it in history that that many people of many faiths sought protection and indeed wanted protection and were of the Muslim state, and it's been evidenced, you know, in previous, as I said, in history that that they had the protection to practice their religion and to practice their faith or whatever it was, and it was the right, it was the duty of the state to actually provide them with protection. So yeah, with that, inshallah, you know, may Allah give us all the tawfiq to practice upon what we have heard, and give us the tawfiq to practice the deen as shown by the Quran and Sunnah, inshallah, and to make real the words that we've heard, and to pass it on to others, inshallah, and to behave in the best way and manner shown by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. With that, jazakallah khair, Sheikh, and inshallah we'll be back next week, and with that we'll leave you with these short messages. Jazakallah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.